which characters lived and which characters died in episode 2 of The Last of Us, titled Infected. We'll get into it right now on the Sundowners Club. Welcome, I'm your host Sean with my co-host Sterling, and we have just watched episode 2 of The Last of Us, titled Infected. And quick thoughts before we get into a few of the basic scene breakdowns of what we saw in this episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? You know, what compared to the game to you? Give me your quick summary.
I mean, they did a really good job at creating the scenery, like the museum and the hotel. A lot of the scenes look like they were ripped right out of the game.
Seem contained.
And just the settings themselves, and so even some of the dialogue they took right from the game. But they did deviate from the game quite a bit on some of the lore and some of the events.
That happened towards the end of the episode as well.
Well, all through the episode, the concept that the fungus kind of has like a hive mind. Did you notice that?
Right.
That's not in the games. So that's a completely new concept. In the games, it basically spreads. You're either bit or it's airborne from spores.
Okay.
So they've changed that aspect.
And they set that up in the first episode where they were kind of going away from the spores side of the story.
Well, I think I've read somewhere they don't want them wearing gas mask or something.
Yeah, because they have these characters. Yeah, that makes sense for the TV part of the story. Yeah,
I don't know. It's a deviation, but I mean, at the same time, there's the criticism that you get from people that if you've already played the games and you know the story, why would you want it told the exact same way? Yeah. So I mean, and there's other people that would like it to be, authentic and an exact replica. So it just depends from your perspective, honestly, what you want.
Yeah, and I thought this episode certainly felt more like a game to me, especially with some of the interior shots as they start out in the hotel and then the museum and the state house. You have these buildings that you would imagine would be more expansive in the lobbies.
Well, they did a great job with that because those look like they were ripped right out of the game.
Yeah, and it felt like that too. That third person view when they're fighting the clickers and the infected, and then going from building to building. So, I liked the opening of this episode. It much like the first episode where it went back to 1968. In this one, we see Indonesia in 2003, and the military authorities show up, and they take this lady away who we find out is a professor of mycology, and they bring her to a lab, and they show her the patient, not patient zero, but an early infected body, and they're asking her about the cordyceps, and she makes a cut inside the leg of the dead body, and so you get to see that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then she ends it with, like, they're saying, well, what's the cure? We need to develop a vaccine. That's why you're here. And she said, no, bomb the city. I thought that was
that was all added too. That was brand new, and I actually thought that was some of the best parts of the show. I think have been parts that have been just added, completely separate from the games. The opening of the first episode where you had the guy kind of explaining the dangers of a fungus outbreak. That was made up for the show too. And to me, those are probably the best parts of the show so far.
Yeah, that opening was really, really cool. I really liked it. And then, so we get into her character. I think a professor's name was Abu Ratna. And so she did a really good job of kind of laying out that, look, you need to bomb the city. I need to go home and be with my family. The urgency of this is a bad situation. And that they didn't know who patient zero was. Patient zero was out there somewhere. So they cut away, and we find Ellie, and she's waking up in this building with Joel and Tess. And we start to see more of Ellie's interaction with Tess. Tess is questioning her, trying to get details out of Ellie, like, how long did Marlene have you, held in that room? And Ellie's, just saying, look, there's a Firefly base camp out west. We need to get me there. And so you can feel tension, but I thought the scenes with Ellie and Tess were really good scenes. And Joel, the character of Joel, was kind of a bystander to that. Joel was talking about going back. Tess was trying to drive Joel forward and accomplish the task at hand. So I thought some of those scenes did more to develop Ellie and I thought that the settings were cool too. You could definitely tell that there was a sense of we're going to see the infected, we're going to see clickers in this episode, and it was building towards that because they had to move, and so they were trying to get, I guess, from that initial hotel where she rang the bell, and she's not as serious, and then a body floats by, and Joel is basically telling her, "Look, this is not a joke. We're in a serious situation here," and so it's kind of builds up that tense relationship between her and Joel and her and Tess, and then they now have to move. So now they're trying to make it to the state house, but they get sidetracked by having to go through the museum to get there. So I thought those scenes were pretty cool. Any thoughts about, you were saying that what the differences were between the game and the show and those scenes of the hotel, and then when they're in the water, and then when they make it to the museum where they finally start to have a little bit of a battle with a clicker was someone who has the full infection for a long time. That's where their face looks.
Yeah, basically the longer someone's infected, the more dangerous they are. And a clicker's been infected longer than the normal ones that you see running at people. So clickers, they can't see, they can hear really well, and they're much stronger.
Okay.
They did a great job with the clickers. I thought they looked pretty much perfect.
Yeah, and going by, they can't see, but they were going by sound, and so you get this, tense sense of, we have to be quiet.
Right.
There's been other movies made where
That's how it is in the game. That's the whole, you sneak around. You don't, that's
right.
The whole point is you don't want them hearing you. So,
and that part really felt like a game to me. So you have, they make it up in this building, and they end up having a few clickers come after them. And Joel is making it through okay, but he's trying to protect Ellie and Tess, and Tess has a hurt ankle, and then you have Ellie who gets bit, I believe, or scratched. Ellie gets scratched, right? And so when they make it out of there, I thought it was kind of cool how they were looking at her scratch and kind of seeing what was happening, right? She's showing them, hey, look, since I've been infected, this has not gotten any worse, and so she's showing them her immunity to the cordyceps. But and so they then have to make their way because they were trying to cut, and they see all these infected thousands out on the street. They've filtered out, and so now they have to go. That's why they had to go up the rooftop, and they had to go across. So they make it past the initial attack where we see the first few clickers, which I thought set that up well in terms of the danger, and then they're now making it to the state house, and I guess the expectation is they're going to meet up with fireflies, and when they get there, there's a bunch of bodies everywhere, but they haven't been killed by the Fedra,
which is a big deviation from the game.
In the games, were they killed by Fedra?
Yeah, in the games they were killed by Fedra, and Tess actually dies in a shootout with Fedra. She noticed she was infected, so that scene was very similar to how it was in the game.
Right, so we find out in that room, she shows Joel
that Fedra comes busting in
there,
and then she basically buys him time in a shootout with Fedra, gets shot, dies, and Joel and Ellie.
Okay, so that's interesting that they changed
completely different on that. Yeah.
Because in this one, the fireflies did not get attacked and taken out by Fedra. They got infected, and so at this point, you talked about the hive mind. Tess is talking about, be careful when they went in the building. There was a bunch of fungus, but it was dry. So Joel steps on it and it's not active. So they go in there. When they see all the bodies, they realize they've been infected, and so she talks about, hey, be careful because it's a hive mind. So if you step on something or have any type of alert, then it alerts the rest of the infected that will come after you. So right when that happens, then you see a body that comes after them that's been infected. And I guess Joel can't use a hatchet or a sword or something he's found over the years and be quiet about it. He shoots the infected, and the infected person, the body falls on the fungus, and you see how it's been alerted. So now they're coming.
Yeah.
And so Tess basically shows she's been bitten on the shoulder, and we've only seen her 2 episodes and a tour, but we know that this is the end of her, and so she tells Joel, you've got to go on. Joel doesn't want to, but she basically says, look, you've got to do this. And so Joel knows he's got to get out of there. So she pours oil on the ground, and it's her last stand. And there's grenades. I don't know why she wouldn't have just picked up a grenade and thrown it on the oil, but she tries to use a lighter, which I guess sets up the suspense of towards the end of the episode where one of the infected comes up to her and the spores, the fungus comes out of the mouth, right? The tendrils, right?
Yeah, it's a lot different.
Out, and it's like a creepy kiss. But right when that happens, she lights the lighter, tosses it, and as Joel and Ellie are making their way out, running off, the whole state house blows up. And so the episode ends with, Tess dying to give them a chance to escape, and we have Ellie and Joel making their way out. So all in all, I thought it was a good episode. It felt more like a game. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just curious. A lot of the main beats of the story are I think the fate of all the characters will remain the same. I'm just curious how they'll change.
Well, she said go to Frank and Bill, so we know that Frank and Bill were going to be introduced to these two characters next week.
Frank was already dead in the game, so you never saw Frank.
So this sounds like next week could be a very interesting episode for the future of the show. But ratings, it got around 5.7 million viewers, so up 22%. That's good news for the show. We'll see if it continues its upward trajectory or if it stabilizes at that number. But all in all, I thought it was a good episode. We'll be here to cover it, and we'll see where the show takes us. If you like what you heard, leave a comment below, hit the like button, and most importantly, hit subscribe so that we can grow our channel. And TCB.